Mr. Secretary General, esteemed delegates, I do not come with a speech, I come with truth. Africa is not broken. We are not waiting to be saved. We are rising on our own terms. You speak of peace while funding war. You speak of human rights, yet turn away when Africa bleeds. We are not here to beg for respect. We are here to remind you that dignity does not ask permission. Today, I do not raise my voice. I raise a generation that refuses to be silent any longer.
But something had shifted in there. A strange, unspoken tension curled around the room. Cameras turned, ready. No one knew why they were uneasy, only that they were. And then, from the far aisle, came footsteps, slow, measured, certain. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso emerged, unbending, dressed not in Western suits, but in his now famous green fatigues, a symbol, not of war, but of unfinished struggle. He held no notes, no handlers flanked him, just a man and his silence, walking into the spotlight. He stepped to the podium and placed both hands on its edge, like he was hankering the room. His gaze swept across the chamber, not confrontational, but clear. Mr. Secretary General, esteemed delegates, brothers and sisters of this divided world, he began, his voice steady, intimate, the voice of someone speaking to your conscience, not your politics. I do not come with a prepared speech. I come with a prepared soul. It didn't sound like a politician speaking. It sounded like something older, like memory, like prophecy. You talk of peace, he said softly, but you fund war, you preach human rights, and yet when Africa bleeds, you turn away, and when we finally rise, you call it a disturbance. Gasps flickered, murmurs rippled, some looked down, others leaned in. But then chaos. The chamber doors burst open like history interrupting itself. Security braced, delegates turned. In stormed Donald J. Trump. Uninvited, unannounced, unapologetic. He marched straight toward the center of the chamber, his face flushed with rage, his thigh swinging violently. You're not welcome here, he shouted, finger pointed like a gavel. You're a disgrace to this room and to democracy. It hit like a gunshot. For a second, everything stopped. Translator booths frenzy. The feeds cut to stunned silence. Even the microphones didn't quite know what to do. But Traoré didn't flinch. He turned, slowly, calmly, and faced Trump. And when he spoke, it wasn't to argue, it was to reveal. Mr. Trump, he said quietly, the last time you stood in this room, you mocked climate science, you withdrew from peace accords, you silenced voices that dared to question you. He paused, then, softer still, and now you try to silence mine. A hush spread over the chamber, even Trump's reach seemed to hesitate. Traoré turned back to the assembly. But shouting is not strength, he said, shouting is fear. Trump opened his mouth, but the silence was louder than him now. I did not come here for your welcome, Traoré continued, his voice rising not in volume, but in clarity. I came for the world's awakening. And then it began. Close, at first soft, then rising. The African delegations stood first Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, then Haiti, Palestine, Bolivia. The room became a wave of standing figures. Emmanuel Macron leaned to an aide and whispered, that was de Gaulle-level dignity. The Chinese ambassador simply nodded. Around the world, news feeds lit up. On TikTok, clips of the exchange hit millions in moments. Hashtags exploded. Traoré speaks for us. Africa stands. Counting is for. In Lagos, a classroom of teenagers jumped to their feet and replayed the moment. In Seoul, an artist illustrated Traoré as a modern David standing before a red-tied Goliath. In London, a professor of history whispered to his class, history just changed narrators. Backstage, Trump seized. He slammed a table, red-faced. That man is dangerous. Did you see how they looked at him? Like he's Mandela. His aide hesitated. Even some of our own delegates are reposting the speech. Trump barked, "Get me a camera. We're taking the narrative back." But the narrative had moved on without him. Traoré didn't stop to address the press. He nodded once to a delegate from Namibia, then exited through a quiet side door. No victory lap, no waving. The United Nations General Assembly was never built for drama. It was built for ceremony, the slow rhythm of bureaucracy, diplomatic theater behind polished wood. That morning, it felt the same. Translation headsets clicked into ears, aides passed notes, and heads of state Saturday through speeches like passengers waiting out turbulence. But outside, the world was already on fire. News vents screeched to the curb. Social platforms buckled. The clip of Trump shouting, "You're not welcome here," reached 72 million views in hours, but it was Traoré's reply that transcended translation. Within a day, his words were subtitled in Urdu, Swahili, Portuguese, and Japanese. Inside the White House, chaos. Trump's stunt had not only violated protocol, it had detonated global respect. Even Fox News couldn't spin it. On CNN, Traoré shuts down Trump at UN, shouting his fear. On MSNBC, Rachel Maddow opened, "We may have just met the most important African voice of the 21st century." In Paris, Macron issued a rare personal statement. "This was not politics, this was moral clarity. We were reminded today of a dignity our institutions often forget." In Beijing, the foreign ministry quietly extended an invitation to Burkina Faso. By morning, Chinese state media called Traoré's speech philosophical courage in the face of Western arrogance. In Africa, the moment was volcanic. In Senegal, murals of Traoré bloomed on alley walls overnight. In Ethiopia, classrooms posted mid-lesson to show the speech. In Ghana, students marched with hand-painted signs. "We are not echoes. No more begging, we build. One man, all of us." At home in Ouagadougou, thousands flooded the streets, not in protest, but in pride. In his private quarters, Traoré watched the scenes quietly. "They're chanting your name in Mozambique," said his aide, and in Boston. Traoré looked up, his voice was calm. "Then they are not chanting for me," he said, "they are chanting for themselves." Trump, meanwhile, spiraled. Allies bickered, some urged apology. He refused. He held a Marche-Lago press conference, railing against foreign interference and respect. But comments under the video told another story. "We saw the dignity. It wasn't yours. He stood, you shouted. You made him a legend." Across campuses in Europe and Africa, students formed coalitions called the Traoré Generation, not African by nationality but by spirit, by the refusal to shout, by the refusal to bow. At Yale, a professor rewrote his syllabus to include the Traoré doctrine. In Berlin, a poet wrote, "He walked without papers divided by, and spoke without fear divided by, and silence fell louder divided by than the tyrant's jeer." In Nairobi, a tech collective mapped how the speech spread like a pulse radiating from one man's calm. For the first time, Traoré's name outranked Trump's on global search engines. And still, he said nothing. 2 weeks later, Johannesburg G20 summit. A symbolic relocation away from Europe into the heart of a continent long ignored. They offered Traoré 5 minutes. He needed 3. There was a time, he began, when Africa begged for entry into rooms like this, measured our worth by Western handshakes. He pushed. That time is over. The room tensed. Some smiled nervously. Others listened. "We don't come here to beg. We come because the future won't be shaped by those who looted the longest, but by those who built, and when ignored." Then he turned. "To the former U.S. President, I was not an outburst. I was an arrival. A pause. You mistook volume for truth, but truth never needed a microphone." And then the final act. He stepped down, walked past leaders, Biden, Tsai, Modi, Macron. Eyes followed him. No one stopped him. At the doors, he turned one last time. "Africa does not rise by permission," he said. "It rises by memory, and we remember now." And then he was gone. The world felt smaller without him. In Burkina Faso, children now learned his name before they learned those of past presidents. At Harvard, a professor assigned analyzed the cultural impact of Traoré's post-UN doctrine. In Brazil, a new political party formed, quoting his words verbatim. Even in conservative towns in America, students debated. His silence the new protest. As for Trump, he faded. Not with a bang, but with irrelevance. He accused. But the world had already moved on. A year later, a statue was raised outside the new African Union headquarters, not of a warrior, not of a king, just a man standing, eyes forward, hands unclenched. Below it, in bronze, the words. He did not raise his voice, he raised the world. And so it ended, not with domination, but with dignity. The age of echoes had passed, the age of standing had begun.